he came off. I wasn't ready for him. My goodness. Was not ready. Guys, this is one of those hot summer days that is, the temperatures are going to reach somewhere around the 100-degree mark today. And most fishermen would choose to fish at night, which I don't always have that luxury. Oh, there's a bite. There's one. Don't always have the luxury to fish at night. So I'm fishing a big worm today, hoping for one or two bites. And there's one. Because on days like this, you just don't always get many bites. And when you do get one, you can consider yourself lucky when it's so hot outside. Just by going outside, you sweat. And there's our first fish of the morning. A little largemouth on a 12-inch worm. Get you back. Now what I'm doing is I'm chasing the shade like I do a lot of mornings. There's not a lot of shade left, so I'm hitting these few shady spots that we do have left, and hopefully we still got just a little bit of the morning bite going on, which you can't never tell. This water's like 88 degrees. Within another hour, it will probably be in the lower 90s. And these fish will act almost like it's winter time. They'll get real lethargic and they won't bite. And I always got cows somewhere. But you have to kind of think of them in the same frame of mind as you do if you're winter fishing. You slow down. You give them a chance to find it, even though it's really hot. They tend to treat their prey, you know, they want to go after a bigger prey, similar like they do in the winter. And that's why I'm using a big worm again today. I did a couple weeks ago and it worked out. Caught a few fish. Now we've caught one on it. As you can see, it's not always the monsters that will eat the big baits, but it's often the fish that aren't scared to eat the big baits or the big prey that'll grow up to be the monsters. And that little 12, 13-inch bass is not afraid to run along the edge here and eat a snake. And that'll help him grow, and it'll also help him as he's bulking for the winter. He'll have more meal at a time than normally he would have running around eating little tiny fish. So you have a lot of bass and bluegill especially, and catfish that will eat a much bigger bait fish than we will ever realize. I haven't been to this particular pond in quite a while, so I really don't know what they've been doing or eating or feeding on, or so I just took a stab at it this morning and decided, since it was going to be so hot, that I was just going to go and throw a shallow running crankbait, which I've got one tied on, and a big worm, and work the most obvious spots before it gets really hot. We got a little cloud cover right now, which is helping cool things off just a little bit, which is great, because I'm telling you, it is really hot out here already, and it's not even 8 o'clock in the morning. So I'll probably never make it till lunch today. I'll 2 or 3 hours, I'll pack it in, go to the house, and maybe try to fish some more tomorrow. Now what I'm doing is I'm working this parallel to the bank. I'm fan casting, but I'm bringing it from the bank out to try to determine maybe where my most concentration of fish. Are they up in this weeds next to the bank in the shade, or are they off the bank? And until you work it a little ways down the bank, or you figure out something that'll give you a hint, you're just kind of guessing. And that first one was a couple feet off the bank, but it wasn't really in that shallow of water. It was 3 or 4 feet deep. It wasn't like it was directly on the bank. So I'm going to gradually work it out, and if I don't get a bite, I'm going to go on down a few feet and work another section and continue to work down this bank. This particular bank didn't produce very well, so I'm headed on down to the next shady spot. And immediately, as I watch my temperature gauge on my depth finder, when I come off of that bank and out into this open water where the sun's got direct, it raised up 2 degrees immediately. So 1 or 2 degrees in a small body of water can mean the difference between a bite and no bite. So hopefully that's what we're gonna find right down here. Is we've got some overhanging trees, and maybe there'll be a bass laid up in here in the shade. Stop right here and not get any closer. Put one up in there and see if anybody's home. Oh, me. There was one in there. He ran off with it, and he bit it in half. So now I have half a worm. Hit and a miss. They're hitting the big worm. So they are hungry. I need to let them have it long enough. I believe I'm getting a little impatient. Long enough to get it in their mouth. There's one. Oh no, and he came off. He took part of my worm. I'm losing baits. But now that fish was right on the outside edge of a big laydown, big tree in the water. And he was tucked up in there, I'm assuming in the shade. And that was a pretty solid hit there. That could have been a decent fish, which it's hard to tell if you don't get them up to the surface or you don't land them. So they're all 10-pounders until you have to show them to somebody. But no, all kidding aside, that was a pretty solid bite. And he had most of that worm in his mouth, except for the part about that much of the hook. And he came right out, so nothing you can do in that situation. I felt he was hooked, and he wasn't, so just one of those things. But we are getting the bites on the big worm. They're not really fast, but they're there. And on a hot day like this, when the water's pushing 90 degrees above, and even when it gets on up in the mid-90s, if you just get a bite each day you go fishing, consider yourself lucky, because a lot of these hot, brutal summer days are tougher to me than winter fishing when it's 20 degrees. I can catch bass lots easier when it's 20 degrees than it is 95. I haven't got the touch that the Florida anglers seem to have. I don't have the mats to punch the heavy jigs down in and stuff like that. It's different terrain, different, just different watercolors, different everything. These bass, they get real slowed down. And now if you put a bait in front of their face and it looks good to them, they're gonna eat it. They're not gonna think a lot about it. They will eat it because they're not gonna waste a lot of time and energy in this hot water to chase a whole lot of stuff around. But maybe once or twice a day when they go to feeding, they'll run around the banks or chase a school. But for the most part of the day, you're going to have to put it right where they are, and that's not always easy. Now if you're out on a big lake, you can use your electronics to find an underwater hump that will concentrate fish at a certain depth, and you can mark that depth or mark that hump and work that piece of cover, pretty good. But when you're fishing, say, these smaller farm ponds, you've got access to everything, but yet the fish are still hard to pinpoint sometimes, and they're still just as hard to make bite as if you were on Lake Eufaula or Smith Lake or one of your bigger lakes, Lake Eufaula, or, Okeechobee or somewhere. The fish are still fish. A bass is a bass no matter where he's at. And if it's hot, he's gonna act the same way. He's gonna slow down. He's gonna really make sure of what his next meal is before he wastes all his energy on it. Same way in the winter time. You pull a jig or a big worm or a drop shot worm or whatever, you put it right next to a bass in the wintertime, and you're going to get bit because he wants to eat, but he don't want to spend a lot of energy going all over the world to try to find it. So if you put it where he's at, you'll get bit. And that's kind of the way it's a lot different than spring and fall fishing, when bass are scattered completely everywhere, running, chasing fry and chasing shad in the fall, and a whole different ball game then. Summer and winter is a different beast, a lot tougher. And for the next couple of weeks, 2, 3, 4 weeks, it's going to be tough. And most of your bass get caught at night this time of year. You could come back to this same body of water tonight, say 10:30 till 2 in the morning, and probably get a bite all the way around, in the middle, wherever you wanted to throw. Everything's cooled down. Fish have gotten more active. The water, it's just more tolerable to them. So they move around more freely, plus it's dark and they're not afraid, and just a lot easier to catch bass at night in the summertime. Wintertime, I want to fish right in the dead of the middle of the day. I like that the best. Not only is it warmer on me, the water temp warms up, maybe only a degree or two, but just like in the summer, water temp does matter. You combine water temp with the right structure and the right cover, and you'll produce fish. Right now we're getting a bite out of like every, maybe one piece of cover is holding a bite or holding a bass. and then we're not getting any more bites. A lot of times you'll pull a bass or two or three out of one specific big laydown that looks really nice, and today doesn't seem to be that day. It's like you missed that first opportunity and you've just missed your bite. That's the way I feel right now, because I've missed two or three pretty solid bites and then couldn't get another bite in some really good looking cover so far. Missed a bite right back here behind me on this dock that didn't get another bite. He tore half my worm off and left. He decided he didn't want to fool with that. So I have to think part of it's my fault. Now I'm making a move that I normally wouldn't make in this hot of weather. I'm going shallower. I'm easing up here in the very end, back of this little pocket, and the only reason I would go, and this is showing less than 3 feet of water, but the water temp is actually cooler because this end has been shaded longer. So I'm going to give this a try just for a few minutes, and we're going to head back that way. And in a few minutes we're going to head back to the studio and do some work, and I'm going to go over a few things that I'd like to talk about, and but maybe we can drag a couple more out before that sun gets up overhead. Back where I started coming across the open water, there's a bite. It was 90 degrees. Back here in the shallower water, it's 88 degrees. And we pulled a bass out. Now he's not a monster, but he was shallow, which is not something you always see in the dead of summer. You don't usually see a bass in 1.5 feet, 2 feet of water. But there he is, hanging out in the shallows because the water's cooler. Ate a great big worm. The worm was longer than the fish. These fish, they take these opportunities to feed because they don't know when the next one will come along. And a big meal like that's just so easy pickings for them. They just suck it in, and man, they can just sit back and take it easy for a day or so. Even with high metabolism, if they eat a whole snake like that that's this long, they're good for a day or two. And that's what these big worms look like. They don't look like worms, they look like snakes. So when you're throwing a big 10, 11, 12-inch worm, there's one. Another one. Oh, and he threw it at me. That's what these great big worms look like. I mean, represent. They look like a snake to a bass. And buddy, you don't think one of it. They will eat anything they can get in their mouth. Another shallow bite. Oh, a better fish. We can keep him on. Come on up here. Come on up here. There we go. Less than 2 feet of water. And we got one of the big girls. There you have it. Summertime bassing can pay off. Man. That's a nice fish right there. Really nice. Hit like a freight train, took that whole bait in its mouth. Never thought twice about it. Don't you let anybody ever tell you a bass won't eat a snake or a little duck or a big rat. I wouldn't even let my chihuahua near the water. Alright, girl. Back you go. Because they don't discriminate. If it gets in their way and they're hungry, they're going to try to eat it.
Yak lights, the industry standard for kayak lighting. Assembled in the USA and including a lifetime warranty on all lights, you can rest assured that you will have the best looking boat on the water. Yak lights are made from solid aluminum, making them the toughest light strips on the market. Our lights are designed for the professional angler who wants to be safe on the water while remaining discreet. Yak lights, light up the night.
Would you like to spend your summer riding your motorcycle? Don't spend your time on the side of the road waiting on a tow truck. Give DJ's Enhanced a call for all your motorcycle tire needs. Danny is a rider, and he will treat your bike as if it's his own.